morning, everybody, and welcome along to this conversation about getting the best out of people to improve efficiencies and effectiveness in your business. We're hosting this from Prosper². I'm Lisa Karen. I'm responsible for community engagement with Prosper². And for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are a business club and rewards program for business owners and directors of small to medium enterprises. Our session today will be around 40 minutes with some time at the end for Q&A. Please do pick up in the chat box panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your questions or comments, and feel free to pop any thoughts or questions in there as we go through. I'll try and get as many questions answered at the end as possible. If we do run out of time and anybody's got any burning issues or anything they want to pick up directly with Sue, feel free to hang around. We won't rush off, and we can try and deal with that at the end if you like. So with the housekeeping out of the way, I've got my fair share of experience personally of management. And all the challenges that comes with that and managing people throughout my career. There's a lot to be said for experience, but I personally think that training and external support is crucial. Leadership and management tends to be rarely come naturally. Most of us need to make some effort to review what we're doing and to keep abreast of what we should be doing. And I think there's always more that you can learn from people around you or external resources. And I think part of being a good leader is being open to that. Someone who's definitely a fan of lifelong learning is my colleague Sue G, who is our business development director here at Prosper and is the font of all knowledge for our session today. She's our resident no-nonsense go-getter. And before joining Prosper, Sue spent a couple of decades coaching business leaders and creating and delivering training on leadership and management. So she definitely knows this topic well, and she's also a published author on the subject. I'm going to be posing a series of questions for Sue. It will be quite conversational. But our goal is to help you towards achieving a happy and motivated workforce, reducing your people-related issues, and increasing your level of confidence around your team and what they're doing, with the outcome of hopefully achieving a better work-life balance. So that's no mean feat to achieve in 40 minutes. We always like to give Sue a good challenge. So we're going to go straight in with the big question. So what's the difference between leadership and management?
Okay, thank you. Hello to everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Lisa. Difference between leadership and management. I think the first thing that I'd like to say is that leading and managing people, I think, is the hardest job for everybody to do. Yeah, because people are different. And trying to get the balance of how we get the best out of our people is never easy. So let's just talk about the fundamental difference. Management is about what we do. Yeah, the task, deadline. Yeah, how do we get things out of the door? Leadership is how do we do it? Our behaviors, our value, our empathy, how we treat people. And what we need to do is we need to find a balance between the two. So if we look at, the easiest way to sort of explain it is if we go back, I can do this as a lady of a certain age. If we go back sort of 20 or 30 years, we lived in a very sort of management area where you were told what to do. Nobody really communicated with it. You were giving a list of objectives. This is deadlines. This is where we go. In the world that we live in today, that just won't work. People expect to be heard. People expect to have opinions, to be valued for what they think. And that is the leadership style in which that we value people and we trust people. But we need to have that balance. So if we've got somebody that is really very autocratic, very management style, tell you do, this is what we want, people won't work to their best. If we have got people and we are being led where people are they're asked their opinions where they go, then they are more likely to have some impact and listen and want to share, and it's a two-way street. However, if you go one way or the other, it doesn't work, because if you do too much leadership, you don't achieve your tasks. If you do too much management, then people aren't motivated and want to do it. So where I say that it's a really difficult balance to get is that we have got to be able to manage when the time is right, and we need to be able to lead when the time is right too. So that balance is key. And I think as a leader, our job is to inspire people. Our job is to get people to choose to want to follow us. When people choose to do things, they do it more effectively, more efficiently, etc. So while we want people to be able to say, you know, there are times as a leader that we have to go, sorry, I haven't got time to explain it. I just need you to do this today. And as long as you are showing those leadership attributes at other times, then people will say, yeah, no hassles, because I know that you will talk to me and explain to me when you've got that time to be able to do that. The other big one, I think, is where do we sit? And the big question is, I think that some of us think we are leading, and actually what we are doing is we are managing. And when we are under pressure, call it stress, call it busy, call it deadlines, is we tend to revert to the I will tell rather than the leadership style that we hopefully are showing at the rest of the time. Lisa, how's that going?
What do you think about this new buzzword, followership, then? It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, and it's really what they've brought out. Yeah, I'm not a big one into words, but this is all about what we actually want people to do. Is we want people to choose to follow us. We want them to choose to work with us because we inspire them. We give them an opportunity. We want to, and it doesn't matter how many staff we have, is our job is to get the best out of our people, to develop them, to challenge them, and to enable them to grow. It doesn't matter how old they are, yeah, where they sit, what they do. Is part of our role is that it is not just to get tasks done. It is to get people to want to and to follow.
And there tends to be a situation, doesn't there, where people who are quite good at their job get promoted to managerial level, and they're not necessarily that good with the leadership side. And I think that's what's important about actually taking the time to learn those skills, because not everybody has them. Most people don't have them.
I agree, and I hope to think in the day and age that we work now is people are promoted because they are good at their job, and they're thrown a chunk of people and said, right, now you're good at your job, here, have some people. And you know, if we want somebody to be, I don't know, a brain surgeon, an engineer, yeah, is we give them technical skills, we train them, and we give them what I call a toolkit to enable them to be able to do their job. A lot of the time is that we say, here you go, have some people because you're good at what you're doing, but we don't give them a toolkit because you're supposed to just be able to do it naturally. And you led in with this is most people don't lead and manage naturally. They need help, they need skills, they need things to be able to make the best. And I'm a massive advocacy of we shouldn't actually be putting people in leadership roles unless they've had some training and have a toolkit.
I totally agree. Totally agree. So how do we move people then from that management to leadership? What do you think is the single quickest thing that we could do to make someone a better leader?
Okay, the first one I'm going to come up with, and Lisa, you're going to know this, is communication. Yeah, for me, the communication is the foundation of life. It's the foundation of leadership. And one of the key rules around communication is this is not about you. It's about your audience. And the first thing that we need to be looking at as a leader and as a manager, as far as I'm concerned, is that it is a two-way street. When we are communicating people, we ask questions and then we take the time to listen to the answers. You know, a lot of the time, and I've done this myself, is that you ask a question and you are waiting to hear what you want to hear, not for their opinions or their knowledge or what they've got to add to it. So if we can communicate and we use that as a two-way street, that doesn't mean to say we've always got to agree with people, but everybody has a voice. And if we put ourselves in their shoes, so empathy sits inside of there, but it's the want. What is it? You know, I think leading people is not always a natural thing that people want to do. If you have got a want to see your team or your individuals develop and grow, if you've got that, you will find a way in how to get the best out of them. So where comms is there, maybe it's the want to do that.
Yeah. And there's a humility about it, isn't there, when someone does it well, in that, you know, it's not an expectation that the leader or the manager will always have the answers. It's the desire to communicate that perhaps they don't have the answers sometimes. That's almost as important.
Yes, I mean, that's how people develop and grow, you know, is that, you know, you learn from each other. And I think this is another thing for us as leaders to remember is we don't have all the answers. I talk about, sort of a lot of you are leading teams and you're very busy in strategy and making certain the business is running and etc. Is the people on the coal face, those people that are, you know, dealing with our clients are the people that actually have a lot of the answers. And if we communicate with them and we realize that we learn from them as well, is that humility, is that however old we are, whatever position we're in, we all continue to learn and develop. And it's back to that two-way. I can just see Mike Butler have dropped something on there, is the 7 key qualities to lead.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are all sorts of things out there to be able to help us. But your key one is that your people, are more important than you are. Yeah, because they are what allows us to be able to deliver. And, you know, one of the things that's in my book, and one of the things that I always say is there is no I in leadership. There is only we. And as long as we look at things like that, then we can be, again, picking up Janine, we can be flexible. We need to be able to change our approach to the individual that's in front of us. And whoever we are, we all have a preference approach. And I mentioned this earlier, is when we get under pressure, we go to our easy approach, which is not always for everybody else, but we're not always aware of it. And therefore, we tend to go back into that management tell rather than leadership. Let's lead and develop.
Yeah. So moving on to motivation.
Ooh. Yes, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, something that I get excited about is, I'm sure you're going to say to me, is it important? And I'm going to answer that question straight away, without a doubt. Now, I think everything in leadership and management is important. Communication, of course. Motivation comes second. Motivation is all about what drives us from within. And the analogy I like to use is, hopefully when people join a company, they come in motivated, they're positive, they're enthused, they put their best foot forward, they want to achieve. How do we 2 years or 3 years down the line end up with people that are demotivated, that are negative, that don't want to go that extra mile? What has gone wrong? And that is around that motivation side. So as leaders, we should be knowing, we should be finding out what motivates each and every individual in our team, because we are different. What motivates me won't motivate you. What motivates you won't motivate somebody else. And for me, things that I've experienced over my sort of leadership career is people make lots of assumptions. Yeah, this must be the thing that motivates you. And
usually money, people assume.
Yeah, and money is not a motivator. That's a longer story, and maybe one day we can do a motivation session. Is that money is a hygiene factor? Is motivation is what makes us happy? What is it that drives us? What is it that develops us? What is it that makes us feel valued? You know, the working place we're in today, somebody mentioned something earlier, Jez, I think, about how has life changed now we're working from home. Motivation's a big subject for this. You know, working on your own, not meeting people that you would do regularly, you know, feels a bit like Groundhog Day. Some things go wrong, you can't share it with people. So as leaders, we need to be working harder to ensure that our people stay motivated. Now then, let me just make something clear, that the only person that can motivate something is yourself. Our role as line managers is to help, support, encourage, and find out how we help keep somebody. But at the end of the day, it is only the individual. The other thing I would say about motivation, I can go on for this for hours, Lisa, but I won't, is that you, yourself, you, the head, you, the leader, you that have got lots of balls in the air, you need to think about what motivates you. Yeah, because if you are not at the level of motivation and feeling positive and feeling good, you are affecting all of your team. So while we have a role ourselves to motivate and the teams we've got, your first point of call starts at you. And the final bit I'll say is that most of us only look at motivation when we're demotivated.
Yeah.
When we're negative, when we're fed up, when something's going wrong, when it's getting too much, and we sit there and we hopefully have a chat with ourselves and go, oh my, you know, what have I got to do? Yeah, I'm having a bad day. What we should be doing is also looking at, when we have a really good day, what made that happen? There was something there that motivated me. What kept me there? Yeah, they're the things we need to learn too, because I want to do more of the things that are making me happy and less of the things that aren't. So a lot of people probably that work for you or alongside you have never really taken the time to think about motivation, to think about their role and responsibility in that. So I would ask you all is, what time have you taken about asking what motivates your people, what motivates you, and how much do you actually talk about it? Because I would suggest not very much.
Yeah. And more importantly, what's demotivating them, I suppose, because you briefly mentioned there about the hygiene factor of money. That can often be the baseline, can't it? Is actually, it's not that they're lacking in motivation per se, it's that some element, and usually quite a small thing, is having a demotivating effect.
Without a doubt. It's rarely the big things. Yeah, normally it is a group of small things. And what happens with motivation is you can start and you can be really highly motivated. It's rare that you go, oh, I'm motivated one day and I'm not the next. What happens is it's a slow move down this curve. It's the little bits of things that keep happening that then start to get what I call little baby gremlins in your tummy that grow into big gremlins. And, you know, it's the little things that drive. So it's not always about big things. Do you know what, you know, if you go and do some reading up about, you know, what motivates, if we look at our younger generation, you know, we have brought our younger generation into the world to know that they can be listened to, that they are valued, that we care, that we want to develop them, that we trust them. You know, they are just things that we should be doing every day. If we're not doing any of that, if we are not valuing people, we don't respect people, we don't communicate with people, yeah, we're forever telling people what to do, there's a whole range, you're straight into demotivational stuff. Yeah. And it's as important to know both sides, but you do really want to get to know what are, so here you go, have a question. What are the two things that motivate you? Yeah. It doesn't matter what they are. Yeah. Personally or professionally. Yeah. And if you think it's money, then you need to go and take a harder look. But again, I will park that because that's another session.
For another day.
Yes, for another day.
So empowerment then. How can we empower staff if we don't trust them to do the right thing?
You can't. You can't empower somebody. See, here we go, I get passionate about this. You can't empower somebody if you don't trust them. Because if you don't trust them, how are you going to let them go and develop and move forward? Yeah, is that this is all about control and trust. Now, if you want to link this back to the last year that we've gone through, you know, one of the things that was in much discussion prior to lockdown was people beginning to want to do a little bit of work at home. Yeah. And companies going, no, 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 we can't do that. Yeah, because you might not work, you might sleep, you might, you know, work slower. And then we got thrown into this pandemic. And what this pandemic has shown us, generally, not all the time, of course, but generally, is that actually we've had to let go of some of that control. And what we've learned is that people, if you give them some autonomy and some range and some scope, is that they will deliver, and then we build that trust. Once we start to build that trust, then you start to be able to empower. Yeah. And I saw something in there, Mike Buckley, you know, we need to develop the culture of responsibility.
Yeah.
You can't develop a culture of responsibility unless you're willing to let go of control. Now, that's a balance. And again, you know, many of you are SMEs, you're heading up companies, the buck lies with you, but you're never going to be able to get that culture in unless you can find that balance. So it's really important. Let's learn from the lessons that we've got through this pandemic, and that actually, if we are willing, yeah, I think also is that control versus trust is about setting objectives, setting targets, setting boundaries, not locking people down. But the way to get trust is to give somebody something that they fully understand, that they can deliver, and that you can go, wow, that was a success. If you haven't got boundaries and objectives, intentions inside of there, then how do you know what a success is?
Yeah.
How do people know what they're delivering?
Doesn't it?
Sorry?
It starts with the communication, because if you haven't clearly communicated what the plan is or what you're trying to achieve, you can't get people bought in and then therefore feeling responsible for it.
Back to my foundation of communication in the first place. And, you know, we don't, or again, I'm going to come back to, you know, when we're under pressure, particularly, I hope it doesn't happen normally, is we think that we have clearly explained something to somebody, but that's in our mind. In comms, it's not about us, it's about the other person. Yes. Have you checked that they understood? Have you checked that they've clarified those expectations? Mm-hmm. Then they can succeed and you can trust them. But without a doubt, going forward, yeah, as we continue to change the way that we work, because there will be much more home working going forward, whatever happens with the pandemic. Yeah, if you want to succeed as a leader, you have got to be able to balance that control versus trust, and to allow your team members to be empowered, to take responsibility, to take accountability for what they do. Then you get a successful team.
Yeah. So moving from that position to personal responsibility and accountable, then how do we do that? So,
well, it's all linked in with that control versus trust. I think the very first thing I would say is that you can't have a blame culture. And I know that's an old term, it's a horrible term, but if we want to empower and trust people, we then have to stand by them. We have to back them up. They have to know that if something goes wrong, because I'm sorry, it will. Yeah, hopefully they're small and we catch them up. And if you can delegate correctly and effectively, you should never wear anything anyway. Another subject for another day, Lisa, is that actually somebody that works alongside you, for you, has done something and it hasn't worked quite the way it does, then you can't slap them. You can't make them feel, because they won't do it again. And what happens then is, it's not my responsibility, I'm not taking. I remember doing some work about 18 months ago with a particular company, and it was all about how do we get personal responsibility and accountability with our staff. It's a big subject anyway, and it was particularly around about 18 months ago. And the answer is, the only way you can do that is by allowing them the opportunity to make a mistake in a boundary set environment, and then to be able to either develop them through it, yeah, rather than taking it back and going, whoo, I'll do it again, yeah, or talking about what you expect. It's huge, it's massive. If we got everybody to take responsibility for their role that was clearly defined, yeah, then you want a successful team. That's how you do it. It's all part of your culture. And we lead that culture as line managers, yeah. So we should maybe be looking at our own behaviors first. Again, a tendency we have as a line manager is to be looking at the team in front of us rather than, hang on a second, it starts here. What are my behaviors? What are my values? What am I leading by? We should lead by example. That is the only way that we get all of these things in place. Sorry, Lisa, slightly off there.
No, it's great. It's good stuff, Sue. I mean, having a no blame culture doesn't mean that you don't discuss what went wrong and try to rectify it and pick up behavioural or competency issues with individual staff members. That's almost as important, isn't it? Because you don't want the same thing to keep happening over and over again. I think that's something that I've seen go wrong, where no blame culture goes too far the other way.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole point really around our teams is that if something goes wrong, it's not about let's make somebody feel that. If something goes wrong, the only thing we should be looking at is how do we make it right, and how do we make certain it never happens again? And what does that individual, whoever they are, what do they learn in a respectful, valued way to be able? Now, I'm not saying, it's very different if the same thing goes wrong time and time and time again, you're going into another area. But as a standard premise is, if something goes wrong, I am there to support you. We are there to learn. Yeah, we will find the solution. Hopefully, I will help you find the solution. Once we have the solution, we will ensure that this doesn't happen again. And therefore, they will want to go out and try something new again. If we don't deal with it in that manner, what we have is people going, actually, don't want to play. It hurt last time. And therefore, I'm not going to take that responsibility. So, boundaries, objectives. And I know people go, oh my God, that structure. It's only structure in the way that helps you achieve what you want. We don't put objectives and boundaries in place because that makes me feel better. It makes me feel in control. If that's the reason they're going in, then you need to get rid of them, and you need to look at the other person and say, what boundaries and control and objectives do we need to enable that person to deliver what we want in a way that we want them to deliver, and that it gives us the peace of mind that we can let go and trust.
And that time when something does go wrong tends to be the time when the person who's operating as a leader will revert back to managing in that stress situation, isn't it? So I think that's the time to be really aware of it as a leader, that the spotlight is on your reaction at that point of how you deal with that situation.
And that's where it goes wrong, Lisa. A lot of the time, we, as line managers, we have the best of intentions, I hope. That should be integral to who we are. But when we are under pressure, and normally it's somebody else putting us under pressure, is we have not realized that our style has changed, and we are maybe not dealing with it in the same way. So if you want some comment on that, is that the other thing we should be doing as line managers is asking for feedback. Whoa, dirty word.
Yeah, scary.
Is why should I be asking somebody that reports to me, what their feedback is? Leadership is two-way. I should be turning around and saying, okay, we solved it. How did you find my reactions? Yeah. Did it work for you? Didn't it work for you? Yeah. So that we continue to learn. And also maybe we've used an approach with an individual that was not the right approach for them, though it was for Jane over there. The only way that we continue to lead effectively is to be able to continue to grow and develop ourselves, and feedback. Nobody is above seeking feedback from each other.
That's a good point.
Another subject.
So there's a lot you've brought up there, Sue. How can we avoid spending all day, every day on managing and leading?
Okay, how can I put this easily is managing has certain things in the sense of keeping in contact, which is what we should be doing daily on deadlines, tasks, etc. Leadership goes with it. Leadership is not a job in its own right. Leadership is what we should be doing 365 days a year. This is something that we do when we talk to somebody. You know, I hear people say, oh, we've got appraisals to do. You know, we've got 6 months and we need to have a chat and find out how somebody is. No, we need to be doing that on a daily basis. I don't mean, oh, we need a meeting today to discuss leadership. Yeah, I'm having a conversation with somebody about work that they're doing. And in that, there's 2 minutes that says, Lisa, how do you feel? Where are you at today? What's been good this week? What's not been so good this week? Leadership is part of what we do. If you are spending or feel like you are spending hours on leadership, then you're doing it wrong. Sorry, it's really as simple as that. This is a two-way, relationship. So it shouldn't be something I have to think about. Of course, you know, once a month, once every 3 months, whatever, you're going to sit down and have, you know, a more detailed chat about where you're going, what your development is. But your day-to-day leadership is how you treat people. How you make them feel, you know, and there are times when we have to pull people up because they've done something wrong or they've broken the rules. That does not mean to say that we have to go into the autocratic management style. The way to get people to change is by having that permanent open communication. Huge, really seriously, is if you feel that you're having to block lots and lots of time off to deal with people issues, please go back and have a little look at what's happening on a daily basis. Just to close off that, I know we're short of time, Lisa, is that we have a balance, and I use a set of scales. And on one side of the scales, you've got management, and on the other side of scales, you've got leadership. And we've got lots and lots of things. We've got less resource, more to do. And what happens is the scales go this way. It's this way. We spend lots of time on this management. And then all of a sudden we go, whoa, team's feeling a bit down. We'll just do this. And then we spend lots of time on leadership and we do this. And our job is to try to do this. And if we can try to just have a little look at ourselves, we would find it much easier.
So just before we move on to questions then, Sue, we've got a few interesting comments and questions that I'd like to pull up. But in summary then,
okay.
What's the key things we should be doing or thinking about taking away from this discussion?
Okay, first one is communication. Go get some feedback. How is your communication? Is it open? Is it two-way? Do you listen? Big thing of things that we don't do. Do you ask the right questions? The other one in that communication side is really and honestly, it's not about you, it's about your audience. Another one is, how much time do you spend motivating your most important asset? Because without your people, you haven't got a business. So do we find time to do that as a part of a general conversation? And the other one is, make time yourself, maybe a little bit of self-reflection around what are your behaviors? Are you showing those leadership styles? You know, is that what you want to be doing? And if not, maybe get somebody else to help and support. You know, we're not all great at everything. And maybe, you know, you and one of your directors or partners, and if you balance the two and help each other, then actually you might have a bigger impact if there are some people, things around there. So many things that I could suggest, but hopefully they will help.
So I really want to ask you this question, Sue. Ian's asked, what 2 things motivate Sue?
Oh, right, Ian, thank you very much. People has got to be the first one for me, is seeing people develop, grow, change behaviours, so helping people. I know that sounds a bit trite, but there is something that says I get massive motivation out of the coaching stuff that I do, and hopefully, you know, within the team. So, but that would be the first one. And the second one for me has to be challenge. And that comes is I don't like to be bored. So as long as I'm challenged and I can get, and the challenge obviously means delivery, and is to be able to see people be happy and motivated in the way that they do.
Yeah. So I think Jez has picked up an important issue, is any tips for the new world with workforce working from home. And I think that is, you know, because Mike's made some comments about management by walkabout.
Yeah, like
and
that
it's
one.
a lot easier to do when you're in the same room as people.
Actually, Lisa, okay, of course it is. But can I say that it happens less in the office, really, because we're too busy, get locked behind our desk and we walk past people. What I did, a couple of things then for people that if you're managing and leading people from home. The first one is key one for me. I know you probably speak to them, you know, every day, every other day. And what you talk about, I can say for 95% of you is what you're doing, what are your deadlines, where does it go? How about, stopping and giving them a call and having a coffee with them for 15 minutes? How are you feeling? What's happening? What can I do for you? Yeah, we can still do that. I know Zoom is not the best thing, but doing things around, not just a task. Yeah, it's about people. And, you know, for yourselves in the UK, you've been going through this for a very, very long period. And it's even more important now to have those open questions with people. I think the other thing is that understanding that there needs to be more clarity against expectations, because you don't have all of the body language and you sit next to each other and it's longer, is when you are setting objectives or boundaries or targets over Zoom or whichever way that you do it digitally, it's much easier to make assumptions and to have misunderstandings. So I would be suggesting that you've got clarity behind that, and try and get your teams together. Yeah, find something fun to do. And there's so many things on the net that you can go and find, you know, and doing a fun get together. But the world we are moving into is not going to go back to the norm. Let's go back to norm. It's never going to happen. And I hate the word new norm,
normal, isn't it?
but there will be much, much more digital communication, because we will be having a lot more people working away from an office base. And it is the world. And if I can say that prior to the pandemic that forced us into this situation, we were going here anyway.
Yeah.
We are just 5 years earlier than we ever were.
And I think understanding people's individual personal circumstances is really important at this time, isn't it? You know, I mean, I don't have children, so I don't have that problem of homeschooling, but I know friends that have got 2 adults and 2 children in a small house. The 2 adults are trying to work full time and the kids are doing homeschooling. I mean, that's an impossible situation, really. I think you have to understand that and be aware of that as a leader.
I think again, as a leader, and this is for anybody individually, and this is not just your job. Okay, we need to do, and we want to talk about trust, autonomy, empowering people. Yeah, if you have got a group of, or a team of 5 or 6 people, this is not just your job. You need to be encouraging other people to be supporting each other. Yeah. So it doesn't just have to be you that does that. fun thing or makes that phone call. Encourage your people to have a coffee with each other. So don't take it all on yours. Secondly, is that when we are busy, we are under pressure, we tend to, and it's not an assumption and it's not an intention, is we think everybody's in the same boat that we're in. And that can go both sides. So, yeah, you know, if you have got, you know, if you're in, you know, you're enjoying working from home and it's working really well, it's quite difficult to give the empathy to somebody else, yeah, that isn't doing that all the time to think. And if I can give you an example, I spoke to somebody yesterday and sort of said, how are you? Passing comment, yeah. And it's like, Sue, I'm having a really tough day. So we spent 10 minutes talking about, that's okay. You're allowed a tough day.
Yeah.
Because, you know, yeah, you know, one of the kids has had a problem, somebody else has done this, and that's okay. So what we have to do is, all of us have to do is, we have to get up sort of the next day and work out what is it we don't want to do to enable today to be a good one. But without a doubt, again, I'm back to comms and audience. What is the person you're talking to going through? And working from home, definitely.
So I'm just going to round off with this one last question, Sue, which is an important one, I think. Jane West has asked if you can recommend any leadership courses that aren't too expensive. You want to pick that up privately, or?
Well, I can certainly offer some coaching through Prosper, which I think Lisa is going to talk about. And, you know, I think this is quite important. The other thing that might be helpful, and it's open to all of you, is, and this is not about me, yeah, I did publish a book. I published a book on Who's Driving the Bus, which is all about the basic toolkit everybody should have. Yeah, if I can ask Lisa to drop in my email address, if anybody wants a copy of that book, then if you drop me an email with your name and address, I will send it to you. And this book was based on a 3-day introduction to leadership and management course that I have delivered for over the years. So that might be, just reading through that, I think will give you some hints and tips. And I'm very happy if somebody wants a copy. Outside of that, if you want to drop me a note and I can give you a little bit of help to where to go and find something, then please do. So I'm more than happy to spend, you know, 15-20 minutes trying to give you a hand if I can.
Fantastic, thanks, Sue. I'm just going to launch a quick poll about topics for other sessions on this, around this area, just to see what people's appetite is for particular areas. Thank you to everybody for coming and listening to us chatting away. Thank you, Sue, for your insightful advice, as always. As Sue said, email us if you want a copy of the book. Sue is currently providing coaching services through the Service Hub at Prosper². So if you'd like to know more about that, you can also use Sue's email or contact us through our website. Great poll results. Oh, quite even split there.
Yeah, maybe we need to do a 3-set masterclass, Lisa. Yeah, maybe we'll do a masterclass on each of them.
Motivation is slightly ahead, but yeah, there's definitely some appetite for all 3 topics. So we'll give that some thought as to our next session, perhaps in February, guys. Thanks ever so much for turning up and listening to us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. And as I say, you've got my email address if I can be of any help.